everyone, welcome to another show. It's tea time again, and today I actually have tea, so it's kind of a special day. And I'm pretty sure that you guys still can't hear this music, and I haven't figured out why, so that's still a thing that I'm working on. Hopefully, y'all can hear me though. Hello. No, maybe. Camera, audio. Hello? Well, that's working. I wonder why. Well, let's check on the phone, because that's also a thing that I can do. YouTube. Me. Hello? There's also a delay on it, so. Well, that's working. But no music. This is irritating me. But anyway. So sorry we don't have music today. Maybe next time. Um, did I do shares? Edit. Stopping. Sharing. Sharing. Audio. This one. Share. Browser can't access your screen. Try capturing a different screen to see if this continues. So it really doesn't like audio. And that sucks. Well, that's fine. I'm sorry. I'll eventually get this figured out. But while we're here, tea time. Yes, it's tea time. Today we have not the emoji search. One of these days I'm going to, get this whole presentation thing fixed to where it's consistent. But we are going to be doing the something. It's on the next slide, I think, or the one after that. So we're going to continue. About me, if you're new to the channel, I am focusing on taking existing projects and breaking them down to understand how they work. And once we understand how they work, then we can build other things that are interesting. And so, everybody shows you how to build it from the ground up. Well, I'm gonna go through and show you how to use your GoogleFu and take it from up to down to the ground and figure out how it ticks and stuff. Also, I probably need to make this bigger so that way you can see it better. Along with that, I have this thing going on. If by the end of this video, if you like it, thumbs up. If you absolutely hate it, thumbs down. But if you hate it, I do recommend that you leave a comment so you can tell me exactly why you hate it. And, we'll go from there. Also, subscribe and hit that bell so that way when I do go live, you can come hang out with me and ask questions and figure out how things work together and stuff. So that's a thing. And so that's there. And for my other banner, there's also a ticker thing that's going to remind you throughout this show that, what's it say? If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments, and I will answer them to the best of my ability. And for those questions that I cannot answer, we have our GoogleFu, so we'll figure it out. For those that don't know, GoogleFu is just how good you are at Googling and finding the right information, because you could be pretty bad at it by Googling something and not finding the right answer and breaking it even worse. So maybe we'll be able to improve that skill here, and that'll be nice too. So I fixed this one. And you'll notice this time it's reactjs.org and not reactjs.org. I did remember to fix that, so that's cool. SnapShot, that's what we're going to go through today, which is the third project on the reactjs.org website for welcoming you into React. And then after we're done with that, we'll do an AMAI, and then wrapping it up with schedules and all of that other administrative nonsense. So, moving on, we got Snapshot, and the summary is that Snapshot is a gallery created using React hooks, and React Router, along with Context API. The routes were set up for 4 default pages and a search page. Also, the images were displayed using the Flickr API and Axios to fetch the data, which I like Axios. So that's nice. The motivation, the purpose of this project was to get familiar with React hooks in the Context API. And to get started, click on the demo link or download the repository to your local machine, create a config.js file in the API folder inside the source folder, which is what SRC stands for. And in the config.js file, write export const API key equals your Flickr API key, which we might need to get one of those, I think. I looked, and I thought there was one on the project. If there's not, we can go find one. Hopefully that doesn't take too long. So moving on, from there you have installing the dependencies. You have yarn install and yarn start. Now I was wondering about this earlier, if I can do npm install and npm start. That might break some things, so if it does, I apologize, and we might be able to figure it out. If not, I'm going to apologize again, because they're both tools used to interact with React projects, and I don't know really how much they conflict with each other. And like it was stated before, it's built with React.js, React Router, hooks, Context API, and the Flickr API. And the features is that it's responsive design, which means that it looks good both on a web page, on your computer, and on your phone. And then the search functionality to search photos from the API, so that's cool. And apparently there's a coming soon thing, the Cypress end-to-end test, which is what E2E stands for, I believe. And then there's contributors, which is all in the documentation. So beyond there, that's the AMA. So let's go back up and let's check out the demo. Since you guys can't hear it anyway, I might as well not hear it as well. So snapshot. Let's search for duck images. So that's cool. So it tells you what you searched for, and it pulls up images of ducks. And yeah, we can also has pre-searchable pages, which is beaches and birds and food. Ooh, food sounds nice. None of that food looks nice though. Okay, maybe a muffin. But responsive, it pointed out responsive. So if you right click and do inspect, you can hit this button up here. Toggle to different phone sizes, which we talked about this last time, but the standard one is, I believe, the iPhone 6, 7, 8, which has a 375 width. But yeah, it looks pretty neat on mobile too. Hit beaches. We'll search for our duck again. Fantastic. Let's see. What else do we have? Oh yeah, I was going to the actual... Where did I put... Did I lose it? I think I lost it again. This one. So here's the README. The last time it was updated was 12 months ago. Updated the README, removed some conflicts, done a commit, added some YAML files, which is what YML stands for. And then here's the README, which is basically everything that we just went over, because I include that in the presentation to present more things in a nice way. But we'll go to code, and where's our terminal? Here's our terminal. So we have our terminal, which I usually have set up in, what is it, personal projects, YouTube, ls. Cool. So we'll do git clone shift insert, and we're cloning down SnapShot. Fantastic. We're going to cd into SnapShot. And then here we can do two things. We can do our install, which is npm install. Oh, it's working? Well, I hope it's working. I hope it stays working, because that'd be cool. Oh, it's kind of warm in here. Also, how about that heat wave going across the country? I've been hearing about it with all of my peoples at Kenzie Academy. They're all burning up. And so I hope you guys stay nice and cool in your houses with air conditioning, hopefully. If you don't have air conditioning, you could always get a big bowl of ice and put a fan on it and stand in front of the fan. I know that works from experience because, fun fact, I used to be really, really poor. Now I'm just really poor. I've removed two of the reallys. Or one of the reallys. I think I said two. Yeah. So, in this package, or in this project, that's actually not bad for not being updated in the last 12 months. 48 issues. A lot of things have updated in that time. So, if this works correctly, then we can go ahead and do an npm start and see if it comes up. Fantastic. Let's search for our duck. Sweet. Let's search for tea. The drink, not me, because I'm here. You already found me. Well, that's Rose. Okay. Well, there's one T. Two T. That might be T. Could possibly be T. Some of these images are interesting. There's T. Peachy. So this does two things. One, it does verify that we do have access to the API key and we don't need to go track that down. So that's fantastic. And from there, we can Control-C, which closes down the server, and then code here, which is what the period means, and open up that. And because we're going to go back into this, we're going to start up the server again, which will open up another window. We could close that one, and it's still working. And VS Code. So we have our node modules, contributing.md, the Travis YAML. So here's some new stuff that we haven't seen before. So yarn lock. It's an auto-generated file, and do not edit this file directly. You know what? That sounds like solid advice. Has a whole bunch of stuff that I don't think we need to worry about because it's auto-generated. So that's cool. What's this? Oh, it's a picture. Okay. That's what it's supposed to look like. Readme. No, we're going to do this in preview. There's that same picture. And a lot of the information that we've already read through. So that's awesome. Coming from here, we got our package lock. Let's see what we're actually using. So dependencies, Axios, React DOM, React Router DOM, and React scripts. Now, these are all brought in after the project was created with Create React App. The rest of these are all done with Create React App. And I think that is the biggest difference. Yep, that's a thing. Package JSON, we're not going to worry about that. Maybe we can open this up in preview. Contributing. So from opening a bug report to creating a pull request, every contribution is appreciated and welcome. New issues / addition. If you come across a new issue or looking for adding new solutions, you need to create an issue, provide description for it, and once it's reviewed, it will be assigned to you, and then you can start working on it. So I believe that is how 90% of getting started with open source projects on GitHub works. I mean, I think that's the standard. And if you find an existing issue that you want to work on, then you can follow these steps most of the time. Telling what the issues you want to work on at a time. You want to work at a time, okay? You can work on multiple issues, but make sure not to pick more than 2 at a time. And once reviewed, it will be assigned to you and you can start working on it. So that's fun stuff. Creating a pull request. You fork this repo, clone your forked repository, create a new branch from the master, make changes, add proper commit messages, and create a PR, pull request, to this repository from your forked repo, providing a description of what you did. Once reviewed, it can be merged into the main repo. So if you ever wondered the general process of contributing to open source projects, this seems fairly accurate for most projects. Cool. So we're going to close that down, open up Travis. Honestly, I've never looked at this before, but it seems pretty straightforward. Okay. Git ignore. So we're ignoring the node modules, which is funny because I don't think the node yeah, maybe they were. This means that we won't send them back up to the repo. Ignoring any folder named builds, and so that's the difference. If it has a dot in front of it, it's a file, and if it has a slash in front of it, it's a folder or a directory. Cool. Public. Go to our index. It's still pretty standard stuff. You have your root div that your entire application lives in. You have your title for your project. And this has a lobster font. Yeah. And this is where the forkbeat thing exists. Image. So we really don't need to look in the public that much, but here's the fun stuff. So this one has an index, and inside of our index we have importing React DOM and some CSS, and then we're importing app from app, which this means in this directory there is, or here, there is a file called app, or a component called app. React app.render, we're going to render our app, and we're going to send it to the root. And then service worker, which does things for you, things and stuff. So that's cool. Yeah. So this pointed us towards our app, and if we hit our control or our alt and that, we can see that it opens up that folder, which is this one right here. Which really we don't need the index anymore, so I'm just going to close that down. Inside of here we're importing React and component from the React package, which is a named export, which is why it's in these curly braces and has a capital. We're also importing a photo context provider from the folder context that has a file called photo context. Now, fun fact, for JS files in React, you do not have to include the .js at the end. It assumes that. But for any other file, you'll want to include the .js, I think. Yeah. So from React Router DOM, we're importing the redirect, the switch, the route, and the hash router, which we'll get into. And then we have these four components: the header, the item, the search, and the not found. Different components that are doing different things, which we will look at once we get into our return. So this is a class-based component. It's named app, which is how we use it. And it extends component. Let's see. Is there anything that we can look at for component? Alt, go, no, I guess not. Base component for plain JS classes. So that's what that means. It even gives you an example of how to use it. How nice of them. Cool. So to prevent the page from reloading, in clearing the input and setting the URL and pushing history and submit. So that's what this is all doing. It is preventing the default. The default nature of browsers is whenever a form is submitted, it automatically refreshes the page, which we don't want a lot of the times, especially for a single page application. We just want it to do things and not reload because everything is already there, which is why state is so important. So e.current target reset, so that points all the way back to the whatever is being submitted and resets it to its original state, which is empty. And then the URL is going to be put into a template literal for a dynamic URL. This is how you enter variables into strings. If you want them to be dynamic strings, you make it a template literal, you use the $sign and the brackets and put in your variable, and boom, you have a dynamic string. And then you're going to do a history.push URL, which means that it's going to go to that place. And so, that was weird. Moving on into our render return. So photo context provider, let's see if we have any information about that. Let's go here. Oh, it's a file. So we have in our context file, photo context. And inside here, we're importing React and create context and use state, which is that state thing I was just talking about, which is pretty handy. And those are from the React package. And then we're importing Axios from Axios. And then we're destructuring our API key from the API folder inside of the config file, which is right here. We'll open that up for a moment. So in order for most API keys, this folder is usually ignored and put into the provider as a, I forget what it's called, a protected key or something of that nature. Anyway, you give this key to the provider and it will continue to function after you deploy it. So that's fun. You export it so that way you have access to it around the entire project. And yeah, so coming back here, coming back here, we also exported a constant of photo context that creates context. And inside of this provider, we're going to pass in props, which means that everything that it could need goes through here and is being able to be used within this function. And in here, we're setting up a couple states. This state is a empty array because it's not a list because we're not in Python. That's one fun thing that has been going on, is switching back and forth between Python and JavaScript. That has been a challenge, but it probably has made me better at, all of this stuff by having to constantly remember to go back and forth between the different data types in each language. And I don't know, it may be an advantage. So inside of this use state, we have the variable that is going to hold the data, and then we have a function, which is what the second part is, to set the data. So the first one, whatever you're using state, is always the variable. The second one is always the function, and as you see, it lights up down here that it is in fact a function. And use state allows this to be done through React. Deeper in the code, it knows exactly what to do with this, which is take response.data.photos.photo and sends it into images. Excuse me. From there, we have another use state for loading and set loading. Now, the difference between this one and the previous one is this one was an array, and the first one was an array. This one is a boolean, which means that it can either be true or false. And there's another way that you can write this down here, is to set it to be equal to whatever loading is not. But for this project, they are specifically saying that whenever this is done, it needs to be false. And so that's how that works. Again, this is the variable, this is the function. Moving on, our actual constant, our search, is going to pass in the query, which is coming from props. And inside of there, we got axios.get. And it looks kind of funny because of how it is for the linter, but what all of this actually looks like is .get and .then and then .catch. This right here and this right here is all the same thing. It does the same thing. It's just it's laid out in such a way that it's easier to read. So don't want you to get confused about that. And we'll undo all of this. Fantastic. So in our get, axios.get is a fetch request underneath the hood, and you pass it in a string, or in this case, a template literal, because we also want to give it our key as a dynamic variable that is brought in from our config file, and we want to pass in our query, which is coming from our props. So our props, anyway, it's coming from our props whenever this function is called. And then it has some more information in here. So you have the API key, the tags, the per page, which means that there's 24, and we can change this to, I don't know, 1,000,000, but that would be ridiculous, and you probably shouldn't do that because that's a lot of data. We might do that because I want to see how broken it is. Remind me later if you want to see that. Then we'll do it. The format is going to be JSON, and that's how it's interpreted when it gets back to us. And it has a no JSON callback. I don't know what that means. I'll be honest. So let's Google it. Let's copy that. Bring that down. Open up Google. And what is that? How to get correct JSON data from a Flickr API. So this must be the API specific response that it's looking for. Let's find something interesting. What does it do though? Callback function. If you want the raw JSON with no function wrapper, you add the no JSON callback with the value of 1. So it makes it to where it's not a function and it just returns specifically JSON data that we can manipulate. So that's what that's doing. Cool. We figured something out. I'm so excited. Yeah, so GoogleFu to the rescue. Anyway, so after we do our GET request and we have our data, then, which is aptly named, we want to take that response and we want to set our images with our data and set the loading to false, so it's no longer loading. And if there is an error, then it's going to catch that error and taking that error and passing it into the console log with a string that says, you did something wrong, and then it's going to give you the error. So that's error handling 101. Ow! Oh my god. Okay. Please don't break. So yeah. I move a lot, so that's stuff. After that, after we get done with this run search function, we want to return the photo context.provider with the value property. Now, remember when I was telling you about props? This is where they're coming from. So we have images, loading, and run search. If you notice, they're images, loading, and run search. So that's cool. That's all coming through the props. And then it's going to return the props.children, which means everything that is within that data that is coming back. Sorry, I have... Okay. I'll check that later. Apparently there's like a new job thing that's happening in Oregon. Might want to look into that. So export default, the photo context provider. That's one way to do it. You can also export on line 6 if you wanted to, but this has been the standard practice, I suppose, for a number of years of how to make this available outside of this file. So that's the photo context. And let's go back here. So we have a hash router with a base name of SnapShot. Okay, well, let's check out the hash router. What is that doing? Oh my god. Where did that take me? Node modules, types. Okay. It's a class that extends React component with the hash router props and any. Does this go any further? No, it just goes back up here. Or it goes up here to base name. If it exists, it should be a string. Get user confirmation. If it exists, as a message with a string and a callback, and setting OK to a boolean. That returns void, and it returns another void with a hash type if it exists with slash, no slash, or hash bang. I don't think base name of snap count. Okay. Cool. That's a whole bunch of stuff that barely makes any sense, kind of. If you have any questions, drop it in the comments and I will dig into it and find an answer to what it actually is doing. Because I know some pretty smart people that could tell me, like, stop being dumb. This is what it's doing, and you should know this stuff, but I don't because it's a long day and all that stuff. So we're going to keep going. Inside of here, we have a container div, and then we have our route. So, um, inside this route, we have a render, and we're going to pass in some props for the header. So this is going to render on all the pages. That's going to have our handle submit function and our history. And then where it gets interesting is down here in this switch. So this switch is saying, okay, if the path is equal to home or just a slash, then we're going to render this a redirect to mountain. Okay, that makes sense. And this switch is always looking for this path attribute. So if it's mountain, then we're going to run an item search. And so from there, it looks like my internet's being dumb. Sorry about that. But we're gonna look at this redirect right quick and see what that is doing. So class redirect extends the component, and it's setting up this function. So it's got the to and the location description, and it's going to push a boolean. From is a string, path is a string, exact is a boolean, and strict is a boolean. So it's talking about the this right here. The to is the location descriptor, and then you could pass in all these other extra options if you want. Yep. And then, so on this next one, we have route to mountain, and we're going to render the item with this search term of mountain. So let's go check out this item. And the item is going to import React and container. Inside of here, we have a function named item that destructures the search term inside of the parameters. And then it's going to set up the h2 with the search term, and then pass in the search term to the container, which we can now look into. As you see, the layers of components get very complex, but if you can understand how to navigate them, you can work your way around a project fairly easily. And I highly recommend that getting used to the alt or the, I don't know what it is for Mac. It's probably option, I think. Check that out. Let me know in the comments if that works. That I would much appreciate that. So in this container folder or container component, we're pulling in React, we're pulling in use context and use effect. Wait, did I already say that? I think I already said that. Or maybe I didn't. I'm slipping, guys. I'm sorry. Kind of. Moving on. We're going to use context and bring in the photo context, and we're going to destructure from photo context, which have we looked at yet? Maybe? Because that's a thing. Yeah. It's coming from this file, going into this file, and now it's doing all that stuff we just talked about and pulling out the run search, the loading, and the images from that photo context file. And in our use effect, we want to run the search with the search term if the search term changes. So every time that this changes, use effect is going to see that, hey, something's new. Let's redo the thing that we are supposed to, and it's going to rerun the search of the run search, and it's going to give us a new set of images. And then once it's done that, it's going to return a div with a photo container. Ooh, ternaries. I love ternaries. They are awesome. So if loading is true, which is what this is, if loading is true, we're going to put in the loader. If loading is false, it's going to put in the gallery of data with the images that we pulled from our photo context file. Did we look at loader yet? Loader. Div with the class name of loader. That's pretty straightforward. I don't think you can get any more straightforward than that. What about gallery? Oh, here's a new thing. So we're importing React. We're importing no images from no images. That's a new one. Importing image from image. And so we're setting up this constant gallery, passing in props, which we should see here soon. Props coming from data with the images. And then the props, that data is set to a constant called result. And then we're declaring images and no images to make them usable. And then here's a comment here. Mapped variables to each item in fetched image array and return the image component. Okay, well, I'll talk about that in a second. So if results.length is greater than 0, which means if it exists, or if it, if there are images in there, we're going to run this function. So we're going to do images equals results.map, which means that it's going to go through every item inside of that array. And for every item, or for every image, we are going to set some variables. Farm equals image.farm, server equals image.server, ID equals image.id, and these are all attributes that are being pulled off of the data, the JSON that's being pulled back with the secret and the title. And then it's being dynamically put into the URL, like we talked about before, with the farm, which is the location, the server, which is the location within the location. The ID is the how you tell which one it is inside of the location I'm kidding, I'm not going to do it all. I mean, there was only one left, but whatever. Anyway, and then it's going to pass in the secret. And then once it has this URL constructed, it's going to return an image, which I think we've checked out, have we? We haven't. Okay. So it's going to return an image with a URL, a key, and an alt passed in. And that is all being brought in with our data that we've pulled out of each image. And then once we have that data, then we can pass in our URL and our title into a list item and set it to an image tag, and the source is that URL being passed into the image function, and along with the title for the alt. And then this is going to export the image, and it's going to go here, and it's going to say, okay, if results is not 0 for as many images as there are, we're going to create an image tag and kick it back up to the container. Else, so if it is 0, we don't have any images, which means that we're going to pass in no images. And in this, it's a pretty simple function that says no images found and search again. So it's either going to display the images or not. And then it's going to return a div with the UL of images. And if you remember, the images are all LIs, so it will return, LI and then another LI and then another LI in this UL, or it's going to return no images. And so it's either going to return no images or, this or that. And the reason why you can put it here is because if there are images, this will be null, so nothing, and it just won't display. And then you export this to the gallery, or you export the gallery to the container. So you're either going to get the loader or the gallery, and then we export the container to the item, and then you export the item to the app. And that is very deep within the app, just by this one thing. So you can imagine how much work goes into a project, even a project as small, because it's not simple, as small as this one. And for the sake of not, having you do bad things to yourself, because I'm going to be repeating myself a lot, this is the same thing as this. The only difference is what is being searched for. That is the only difference. But this last one is different. So this last one is if you search for something. So like I searched for duck. When I searched for duck, I went through this route to do all of the things that we just went over, but I'm pretty sure. So instead of going to an item, it's going to a search, and it's going to have a search term. Yeah, I'm making sure that. So it's going to pull in the props.match.params.search input. What this means is that whenever you type in your search, it's going to be put into the URL, and you can pull data from the URL depending on how you build it. Usually it's after a question mark. Is going to be a search term. So let's look at this component. This could be interesting. So we're importing React and container, and here's our search term and our container, which I have a feeling we're about to get really repetitive here. So that's the only difference. Is this is saying if we search for something, this is saying stuff that's already been pre-set up to be searched. So that's the difference. Close these two out. From there, we have routes for a component not found. So if you go to a page that hasn't been set up, it's going to give you this of page not found, which we can look at right quick. 99.9% of websites have a not found page. And what's Home do? Home does that. Let's do not found. Not found as a thing? Cool. So this, not found. Aha, page not found. So that's cool. And that works. And then to navigate away from this, you go to mountain. And let's pull this back up. So that's the not found. There are some people that go really above and beyond for the not found page, which I absolutely love because it makes it interesting whenever you're like, oh, I didn't find anything, but oh, cool, there's something, like I can see something interesting anyway. So I know that I was watching a capstone for a project a couple months ago, and the not found page was whenever you scrolled your mouse around, it moved a bunch of tiny little neon balls, and I swear to God, I played with that for a good hour-ish because I was just mesmerized with it, and then it just every now and then you just find something that is like, oh, that's cool, I want to play with it. Yep. And then moving on down, we close our switch, we close our div, we close our router, we close our provider, and export the app to our index. Now, let's go through and make sure that we actually looked at all of these. So we have config, yeah, we looked at that. Components, we looked at container. Did we look at the form? Oh, we didn't. So let's check out this form. This form is using React and useState from React, and it's going to be called a form. we're destructuring the handle submit and the history. And in here we have our state set up to, if you remember, this is our variable, this is our function. Yeah. Sorry, my mind took me back to back when I was in the Marines, and there's a certain song that you sing when you're in the Marines, and drop it in the comments if you remember what it is, or if you know what it is. Anyway, so that's fun. This state is being set to an empty string, so that automatically tells you that whenever we run this function to set this search entry, it's going to need to be a string when you give it to it. So that's a hot tip that could be useful whenever you're trying to figure out why you broke it. You might be passing in the wrong data type. And then we have a comment here, so update the search text state. So this const is taking in an event, and it's taking the function set search entry to e.target.value. So the event, whenever we run this function, is an onChange, and inside of the this input, it's attached to an input. The input has a value, so what it's looking for is this e is equal to this value, and it's coming from the e.target. Yeah, that's a thing. So after we set that up, after we update our search entry, or set our search entry, we're going to return the form. Has a class name of search form. It has an onSubmit, which is taking in the e, and the handle submit, which is passing in the event, the history, and the search history, or search entry, and it's taking it to handle submit. Where is handle submit? It's up there. Well, that's interesting. Okay. It's going to be the search bar, but yeah. Below that, we have our input, and like I was just talking about, it has data attached to it, which is the type of text. The name is the search, the placeholder, which is what appears inside of it. Let's minimize this. This search right here, that's the placeholder. And then it has a button of type submit. So there's different types that you can do, I think. Type equals. So you have type equals button, reset, and submit. But this is going to be a submit because it's attached to a form, and you want to submit the form. And then on submit, you do a bunch of things. Rabbit holes. The class name is going to be search button with the search entry.trim, which removes the leading and trailing white space. So like if you do space duck space, that trim is going to remove all of that space because it only cares about the duck. So, hey, what's up, Scott? How are you doing? Coming back here, so after it searches it trims the search entry, it comes into a ternary, and from there, it's if this is true, which means if there's something exists, there's a search term, it's going to switch to active. Otherwise, if it's false, there is no search term, it's going to switch to null. Fantastic. I'm glad you're fantastic. Thank you for coming in and hanging out with me for a little bit. So this active and null is coming from the CSS, which should be in app. Nope. Index. Active. Oh, also fun fact. If you search for something inside the document, it'll take you straight through it and you don't have to look through 90 lines of code to find exactly what you want. So whenever this is active, it changes the background color to this blue looking color, and changes the cursor to a pointer. So that's fun. Let's close that out. Disabled equals not search entry.trim. So if it doesn't exist, If it doesn't exist, then it's disabled. Okay, that's cool. I'll have to figure out why that's used in order to be able to explain it further. But that's a thing. It's a thing that we can do. So in here in SVG, it has a height of 32 and a width of 32. So what on here is 32 by 32? Probably this button right here. That looks like 32 by 32. And if we inspect and go out of there and do this, haha. So that is specifically the magnifying glass, which looks funny on here. It should be a darker color. Does it change? Oh, it does change. So active. Oh, okay. So that's what it's doing. So when it's not active, it's changing this to a different color, making it undisabled. So that was really quick to figure that one out. Whenever it is not empty, then it is true. No, false. When it's not empty, it is false. Disabled is false. That is just written really weird. Okay. This D is actually the dimensions, I believe, of the SVG, the image, and it has a fill and a fill rule. So even, odd, and a fill of white. And then you close everything out and you export this form to wherever it needs to go. So yeah, we're going to close this out. Don't save because I really don't want to change anything, and don't really want to change anything there either. So we've looked at the form, we've seen the gallery, we've seen the header, we've seen the image and the item and the loader. I wonder, have we looked at the navigation? We have not. So that's all inline styling. Okay, what were we looking at? Where were we? Form. Are you talking about this right here? This D? So there's the question. For this question, is this what you're talking about? Yeah? Okay, so that is not inline styling. This D, let's see if it pulls it up. It is a SVG attribute. So path has an attribute of D that defines the dimensions of the image. And so let's Google that right quick. Attributes of SVG image. So a scalable vector graphics. Geeks for geeks? Why not? We'll see. So X, Y, width, height, href, aspect. So it doesn't look like, you know, this is one thing that I would love to learn how to do is SVGs, because it seems like it would be really neat. It doesn't look like we have the answer that we're looking for. So that's the thing about Google. You can Google the right things and get the wrong answers all the time. So we have CX, CY, R, stroke. I know it's not class names though. So, never worked with SVGs? Yeah, it is. They're interesting. They're definitely interesting. So go there, go there, go there, back to SnapShot, and pull up our code. Yep. Any more questions about the forms? Load Header, navigation. We were on navigation. From there, we're importing React and we're importing navlink. Now navlink is a very special A tag. And fun fact, if you are wanting to style this navlink, you call the A tag, not the navlink. So like if I wanted to change the navlink to blue or whatever, then I wouldn't call navlink in my CSS. I would call the A tag within the LI within main nav. So that's a thing to keep an eye on. It took me forever to figure that one out, and now it won't take you forever because I just told you. So in here we have basically just a bunch of A tags that are going to somewhere. That's another difference is with the navlink, you don't have an href, you have a to property, but it does the same thing, and you put in your path, and yeah, it works. The rest of it works the same way. Is this is what it's called: closing, closing, and repeat, rinse and repeat. And then you want to export the navigation, and we're going to open up our app again, come back up here, because, or maybe it's on our index. Nope, it's not in our index. Where is our navigation? I don't think it is actually anywhere. Displayed anywhere anyway. No, it should be. I'm being dumb because this is our navigation. So where is this? This in our container inside of a div, and it's inside of another div, or the nav tag, which is a div, a special div. Okay, so let's see if we can find this. So div with the class of container. Div with the class of container. Then we have our route. Inside of here we have our header. And let's go to our header. Ah, there it is. So I think we looked at it. Or did I just completely miss it? I probably completely missed it because I don't remember looking at it. Yeah. Cool. So that's how, again, you go through the different components to see how far they are connected down the line. No images, not found, and search. I believe we went through all of those. Yep. CSS app was all the basic stuff coming from Create React app, which you usually delete, but it's fine. And all of this CSS for the project exists within the index.css, which is the most top layer of your project. It's being passed down from the most top layer. So no matter what you do in all of your other components, your other layers, this should be passed down into that component. So let's see if we can find something interesting. Pseudo selectors are always interesting. So whenever you are hovering over the A that is attached to the fork on GitHub, fork on GitHub. See, I'm dumb. My bad. Fork on GitHub. It has a background color of red and a text color of white whenever you hover over it. So let's go see. Does it change? It does. Oh, that's so pretty. I like it. And then it has a before and an after. Honestly, we can go in depth on CSS and spend another 2 hours talking about it on all the different things that you can do. But I will not subject the general public to it. If you want that video, drop it in the comments and we'll make a session out of it. Hell, we might do CSS Saturdays. That sounds like a good plan for Saturdays. It'd be every other Saturday because I also have to do study hall, but it's fine. Um, it's hidden. Search form. A button on a search form. The active, which we looked at earlier. You have your input. Um, so remember when I was telling you about that A for the nav link? That's how you set it up. Is you're looking for an A that is under the main nav class, and the A is the same thing as the nav link. So there it is. And then it has a hover property. It's built with Flex, which I highly recommend that you guys get into. So the photo container UL image, specifically this image, will scale 1 1/4. I don't remember seeing it scale. Oh yeah, it does. Well, that's cool. So depending, grows. Okay, so yeah, it grows on you. And I'll admit, it's kind of growing on me too. Loader, then you have your keyframes. Something is spinning. Not sure what is spinning. Anyway, and then this right here, this media at only screen with a max width of 767. Yeah, I said that right. That is for the mobile version, which most of the time your mobile version will hold less CSS. And then whenever you are developing and you want to start with, there's a design method called mobile first. So you design everything for mobile, and then as it grows, you make adjustments to make it look better. Highly recommend going that way with it. A lot of properties on here. It's going to be the same as what we just saw. Yeah. Rotate. That'll rotate 45 degrees on mobile for the fork on GitHub. And that's the CSS. How'd I do? 1 hour and 10 minutes. Honestly, I'm getting pretty good at this. We went from a really small project for an hour to a more complex project for an hour. I think an hour is a pretty good amount of time, give or take 15 minutes. But obviously, with the bigger projects that we get into, it'll take more time sometime, or sometime in the future, it may take me 6 hours to extend a project, and that'll be like a marathon thing that I'm running to, I don't know, donate the donations to some charity or whatever, because I hear that's what people do, so I might want to do it too, but we'll get to that. Yeah, that's the project. So let's come back here. Let's go here. Make this bigger. I'm gonna present this again, making me bigger because, well, we'll keep this the same size. So we went through the project, the snapshot. So AMAI, ask me about it. Ask me anything about our project, and I will do my best to answer your questions. Let's see. Scott says, you'll figure out your sweet spot. I will. I most certainly will. There is a sweet spot somewhere in there. And while I have a moment, I'm going to check my socials because they have been blowing up today. Let's do that. Oh, Scott, is that how you found me? Through After Hours Help? That's awesome. Another message. I'll read that later. That's good. All right. Yeah. So, how's y'all's day? Again, we can throw this away and put this up because, who on YouTube doesn't want votes and subscribers and hitting that bell and all of that fun stuff because that's how you grow and stuff. So, please, thank you. And so there's that. There is a bit of an announcement. I was talking to one of my colleagues earlier, and it is very possible that um, I will have a guest speaker on this show for them to talk about their app that they're building. I don't know when it'll happen because it's NDA for a certain amount of time because of stuff. But if you guys have an app and you want to come on here and talk us through it and see if we can figure out what you're doing with your app and be able to answer any questions that we have on why you did it a certain way, I would love for you guys to come and join me because on this platform I can have guests, like people come and talk and do things and stuff. So, awesome. It is coming up on 15 after, and if we don't have any questions, I'm going to go ahead and close this down and um, wrap this up and close this down. So let's do that. Let's wrapping it up. I will be live on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Excuse me, from 5 to 8 PST. Um, that is up to 8 o'clock, depending on how much of a good time we're having. Who knows? It may last a little longer, but I do block out 3 hours for this, for those times that it runs a little long because we all know I love to talk. So that's on Tuesday and Thursday, and then on Saturday is maybe time, which we discussed or mentioned briefly that CSS Saturdays might be a thing. I'm gonna look into that and see what we can do. Maybe we can do something interesting. If you have any interesting CSS projects that you've seen, feel free to um, send them my way and we'll break them down and figure out how they work. Hey, what's up, John? We weren't making anything. We were going through an existing project and trying to figure out how it works. So as soon as this is closed down, you can do the replay and see how I have gone through a project and tried to understand its functionality and why it was built the way it was built. So, yeah. Do I have a slide after this? I should have a goodbye slide after this, right? That needs to be a thing. I should make that. I want to make that soon. So, yeah, I will see you guys in 2 days on Thursday, and you'll probably be able to see a trend here. We're going on to the next project on the reactjs.org website, and we will dig through that one. And until next time, I will see y'all later.